Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. I am thrilled to be joined by my very good friend, Gwen Newsome, who is the president of collegerentalhouse.com and an Air Force veteran spouse. Um, I was just telling Gwen that it is just really special for me to be able to interview her today because she is our last military spouse highlight of 2024, and she was one of the very first friends I made in the Air Force. So, hi, Gwen.
Hi, Sue. Love you, honey.
And
So
it's
glad
I
you're here.
love having you here and I love catching up with you because like to me, Gwen, when we first met, I had a young son, um, and I was not working, but she was always the career woman. Like I think you had your kids later, Gwen. And so
Yeah.
like even when we were in Wichita and it was a very operational base, like the guys were always gone. The guys and gals were always gone, but like our guys were always gone. And she was working all the time. She was like Garrett's second mom. And so it was to me, she was like that. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of like the Mary Tyler Moore show or something, like, the woman who always goes out to work like ahead of everybody else. And so like you really personified career portability before it was a thing in military spouse employment, in my mind. And you'll always hold that place in my mind because I think your journey is just so extraordinary. Like I know that you have told me that you've had your fair share of setbacks. I never saw it because it always seemed like you just dusted yourself off every single time. You just forged ahead and you managed to find or even create even better opportunities every single time. How did you develop the resiliency to do that?
I think, thanks first of all for having me. And I just think it's something I was sort of raised with a little bit with my folks. My dad always worked. My mom actually worked, and I was kind of a latchkey kid growing up. So I had to be a little self-sufficient from a younger age. But I just never, when I went to college, I never figured that I would sit around and just not do something with a career after paying so much money for school.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to figure it out. Did I know what I wanted to do out of college? Absolutely not at the time. But then I met my husband and we were off to Wichita, Kansas and Germany and now we're in Nebraska, but it just there was never a thought of that. And it was always like, just figure out, go have fun and try something new. Right?
Yeah, you downplay it, but I still think that's quite extraordinary. And I was like, I read your highlights and I pretty much know your life, but I also read your highlight. And if you have not read Gwen's highlight, I highly encourage you to do so. And I was thinking about one of the things you said, which was you were talking about having to convince employers, because remember, this was a different time than now.
Yeah.
We were talking about having to convince employers that you weren't a temporary employee who was going to leave them after a few years. Like, how did you do that back then?
I think, if it was a question where they knew that I was a military spouse, and I think that would come up here and there, I just addressed it straight on. Or if it was the elephant in the room, I just addressed it straight on and I said, look, there is not you're not going to get anybody you don't know who's going to stay, how long they're going to stay, right? Number one. Number two, yeah, I'm a military spouse, but guess what my powers are being a military spouse? I am resilient. I'm organized. I will get the things done that I need to get done. And you will have somebody super dedicated. And I don't know that you're going to get that with somebody else. And I can address that head on. And I think that built a little bit of trust with the employers, because I do think that they appreciated my willingness to kind of just address it, and it created, like I said, a little bit of trust. So, they knew like I could focus on it, boom, 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 because I don't, military spouses, we don't have time to waste. Like we just don't.
I feel like we always feel like we have something to prove. So we hit the ground running and we're like, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can improve. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the other piece is like when you have challenges and things, like we just go get it head on and just take care of business, really.
Yeah. And I mean, especially you, it seemed like you always, like, every opportunity that you had, because like you were well entrenched in a career and then you moved overseas. And
Yeah.
then you're overseas and then you go back to another area and then you totally like move career fields. Like you changed career fields. You totally pivoted. But it just seems like every opportunity prepared you for the next one, even if you couldn't necessarily see it at the time. I mean, have you always been good at identifying gaps in the marketplace and knowing what to do next?
I think I think when you say, identify, I don't even think you know what comes at you at the time. I think you just have to live the moment and see where you're at and really just be open to opportunities that maybe might challenge you a little bit. It might scare you a little bit. We moved back from Germany to Nebraska and I had to go to work for literally at a job I didn't know very much about, didn't know if I was going to be good at, and I was literally covering my kids' daycare because my husband was a part-time guards guy and had no insurance, no anything. And I basically worked for daycare at the time and provided us, healthcare coverage. And that was, and there was no option to fail when you're a parent, right? There wasn't. So I just think you embrace things, you learn from things, and you really just kind of every opportunity you have to learn is a stepping stone for the next thing. It really is. Maybe something I learned 20 years ago is something I might go back to today. It might be something, something I'm learning today wasn't even around 20 years ago, right? So it's just all a building block of the whole process of life.
So I keep talking about your extraordinary pivots and everything, and I act like everybody knows you. They're not that lucky. So I wonder if like I want to talk about your new business venture because you after working for people your whole
Yeah.
career, you decide that you found this niche in the marketplace, like you found a gap and then your niche in the marketplace and you started this new business. But before then, can you just run us through like your different career paths, like the inflection points in your career that led you to what you're doing now, and just tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so let's see. Back when I married my husband was about 1993. I think it was. I always get that anniversary date a little bit off. Is it 93, 94? When did we
Art's
get
not paying attention, he'll never know.
I know, right? But anyways, we worked in Wichita, Kansas, and I worked for a hotel company for Starwood Hotels, being the manager for their reservations and revenue department. Then we got stationed overseas in Geilenkirchen, Germany, which is a small NATO base overseas. Not much around there. So Düsseldorf was probably 45 minutes away. And I had an opportunity to go work at Starboard Hotels and Resorts in Düsseldorf. But I was pregnant at the time with my first child, and my husband was very supportive if I wanted to go and do that. But at the end of the day, just decided to stay home and actually be a mom, which was the best thing. And after 3.5, 4 years in Germany, we moved to Nebraska, to Omaha. My husband got a job with the Lincoln Air National Guard. And I started out working for a company called Sergeant's Pet Care as just an administrative assistant. I was looking for anything at the time to get my foot in the door. And I ended up becoming the senior category manager, overseas development. I don't even know what you call it. I used to travel to China and Taiwan and all kinds of places overseas developing pet toys for the company. And then I went to work for a quilting company doing product development for a year. And then I became a buyer for a company called Hayneedle here in Omaha that sold to Jet and to Walmart. And then the owner of Hayneedle called me and we did a startup company here for the last 7.5 years. And, startup companies are always challenging. So that is not doing so super well at this point. And so I decided that it's time to, I've been putting so much passion and energy into all these other companies. It's just time to do something for myself. And one of the things that I love is that, 20 years ago, we were talking earlier, you know, Amazon was just getting started like 25 years ago. In 1999, when we were in Germany, it was such a pleasure to order off Amazon because you could have some American stuff delivered overseas. And, the digital marketplace and the digital business and the world of e-commerce right now is crazy. And it's so great that like military spouses can take advantage of that because that just wasn't around when we were younger. So it's exciting. So I'm starting my new business. It's called collegerentalhouse.com. And when my daughter was in college, my oldest daughter went to school in Lincoln, Nebraska. We bought a rental house when she was young, a sophomore in college because the real estate market is still good, but we bought a house for her to live in to save her money on room and board because all the parents are paying for their kids' room and board expenses. So why don't we make an asset out of it? We had talked to people previously who wished they would have bought a house while their kids were in college, and saved, had other parents pay the bill, pay the mortgage and create an asset and create some wealth in that. Now, granted, I'm a novice. Like I love watching HGTV. I was like, oh, honey, I just kind of want to decorate a house since ours was pretty much done after living here 20 years. And we just, I started this business where for 7.5 years, I've owned college rentals. I bought one in Lincoln, one in Omaha, and I've got another one. And, you know, I've learned through the ups and downs from a parent perspective of what works, what doesn't work. And I decided to write a book just for parents that want to understand the process and create wealth and not spend over 4 years of college is close to $50,000 in room and board. If you can cut that expense, you know, it's a huge thing. So yeah,
So what does collegerentals.com do?
a college rental house well, there's two things. There's a book called Dorms to Dollars that if parents want to understand what the process and what they would be getting into and how to own a college rental, it kind of goes from A to Z on that. And then I also created, if you're really going to do it, a parent landlord property system, which is more detailed version of the Dorms to Dollars book. And I defined every tool you could possibly need from, do you know what your appliance serial number is when you have to get that dishwasher fixed in your rental house? Do you know gosh, you need the guy to go touch up, fix that washing machine? Do you know what it is, the make, model when you're calling people? There's so many tools. There's over 35 tools that I've created in this kit. It really takes you from A to Z in the whole process of owning a rental. So you're not having to recreate it because we're busy as parents. If you're a parent of a high schooler, you're dealing with sports, music programs, you're trying to get your kid to study for the SAT or the ACT, you're doing college letters, you're helping with all that. You don't have time to put together the welcome packet. You don't have time to put together, your financial tracking sheet. Why would you want to spend hours, a lot of hours, when it's all done for you? So I
No,
put
I
that
love it.
together. Yeah,
I love
it's
it. So see,
fantastic.
it's what we were talking about, like every experience that you had in the past, it, like prepared you for this experience. So I guess like at the end, we're at the end of the interview, I guess my last question for you would be your biggest tip, like lesson learned, or what would you tell yourself? Like, what is your biggest takeaway from having to experience career pivots and portability within the military lifestyle?
Within the military lifestyle, I'm just embrace, I would say a couple things. Embrace it because even if you feel like it's a little bit of a setback, you are probably going to learn more things by just going in and doing it. And the other thing I would say, looking back at the career life that I've had, for me personally, and I think people don't do it enough, is find mentors and ask for help for people because people really do want to help. I used to be so shy about, oh, maybe they're going to think less of me or like not, how does she not understand this? Um, and I didn't really reach out for mentors and stuff. And I'll tell you, there's so many people, and people probably specifically my age, that want to help younger generations and just be like, Let's get you there. Let's go," because we want to be a good resource. We like to be, ask for advice. So I would say that.
No, and that's really great advice because you are definitely speaking our language because we tout that all the time where people should go out and they should seek out mentors, they should seek out sponsors. So I love that you finished with that. And I love that you were my last interview of the year. It's been so much fun catching up with you. And
I
I
I love you and your family, and I love what Sue, I've always admired you from the first time I met you. Just the way you handle this, and you're like the way you've put together your business, and you had that vision back in Wichita, like we've got to get the career thing for these military spouses. You were just beating the drum all the way back then in 93 about getting something going. And I'm just so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
make me cry.
Oh,
No, but this is
God.
why she's my last interview, the one I was looking forward to the most. You know, I've loved every interview I've done, but this one is very, very special to me.
Oh, you're so special. You and your family are so special to me. And it's just, it's so fun when we talk about like our kids and what they're doing. And you've seen my kids over when we both lived in Germany. You were in Ramstein. We were in Geilenkirchen. We'd meet up every once in a while. And my kids were so little. And I still remember that one of my dogs, when we lived in
Garrett,
Wichita, Garrett used to hold it by its tail, this little puppy, just so funny. And you just recently had a chance. My daughter came out for youngest is in cybersecurity, just started her real big girl job. And she came out to DC for a conference, and you got to entertain her and take her to dinner and drinks and all kinds of fun things. And she absolutely loved it. It's just so fun to see the kids grow up and just be their own people. And wow.
what it's all about, right? Like
Yeah.
when I start NMSN, I mean, you guys bear with us a little bit, but when I start NMSN, I just wanted to create like that good old boy network for military spouses so we could support one another. And like this perfectly exemplifies that and personifies it, right? To the next generation, even because it's all about supporting one another. So I'm so happy you were here, and I'm gonna go before I cry anymore. And
Don't
I'm gonna thank our
cry.
friends at USAA for making these
You,
conversations possible,
I
and thank
know.
you, Gwen, for being the last
I
one. And um, happy 2025, you guys. I mean, I'm sure we will have other things for you to follow in the coming year, but follow us, follow Gwen, and check back in to see what we're up to this year. Bye, guys.
Thank you.